Essay number 45, Experiences We Don't Have English Words for Yet. There are moments in your life that you can't describe, not because you lack vocabulary or intelligence or poetry, but because the English language literally doesn't have words for them. These experiences are universal. We all have them. Yet we're all isolated in them because we can't name them, can't share them, can't even properly think about them because thinking requires language, and language has failed us. Other languages sometimes capture what English can't. The Japanese have komorebi, that specific interplay of sunlight filtering through leaves that makes you stop on a forest path and just breathe. But we don't have that word. We just have that moment, unnamed, unclaimed, slipping through our consciousness like light through trees. We don't have a word for that specific joy when you're with friends watching a show and someone says, "You're totally Charlotte," and suddenly everyone's assigning characters, and the accuracy is so perfect, it's hilarious. That running joke that develops, where every situation gets filtered through this lens, that's such a Samantha thing to do. And somehow it captures something essential about your group dynamic that you could never otherwise express. We don't have a word for the feeling of skin on skin. Not sex, not even intimacy, just the simple, profound sensation of your skin touching another human's skin. The electricity and comfort and ancient recognition all at once. The way it grounds you and lifts you simultaneously. The way it makes you feel more human and less alone. What do we call that temporary, beautiful high when you decide you're going to change your life in some aesthetic, easy way? When you buy the planner or download the app or rearrange your room, and for those few hours or days you're absolutely convinced that this time, this one small change will cascade into total transformation. That feeling that's equal parts hope and delusion and somehow necessary for survival. We have no word for our inability to grasp what we don't know yet. That philosophical vertigo when you try to imagine what you can't imagine, when you realize there are thoughts you can't think because you don't have the concepts yet. Like a medieval peasant trying to understand the internet. Not difficult, but literally impossible because the framework doesn't exist. What about that experience of hearing something a dozen times? Advice, a quote, an idea, and it means nothing until suddenly it becomes the exact answer to a problem you're having. The same words you've heard before suddenly reorganize your entire understanding. It's not learning, exactly. It's more like recognition, like the information was waiting for you to become the person who could receive it. We don't have a word for when human age becomes irrelevant. When you connect with someone decades older or younger and suddenly chronological time means nothing. When wisdom appears in a child or playfulness in an elder, and you realize age is just a number we assign to bodies while souls operate on an entirely different timeline. There's no word for that specific parenting style that tries to shame children into being functional adults. That believes embarrassment builds character, that oppression creates strength, that criticism leads to success. We all recognize it, many of us experienced it, but we can't name it in a way that captures its specific damage. We lack language for wanting sex that's more than physical, not making love. That's become a euphemism. But that desire for spiritual sexual connection, where bodies become a means of reaching something beyond bodies, where orgasm isn't the goal but a possible side effect of something much deeper, where you're trying to crawl inside someone's soul through their skin. What do we call that mental preparation before you have to play a role? Before you visit family and have to be the version of yourself they expect? Before you meet with the boss who only knows professional you? That rehearsal in your head, practicing conversations, preparing responses, armoring yourself with the personality you'll need to wear? We have no word for that specific piece right before sleep. Not tiredness, not relaxation, but that exact moment when your consciousness agrees to let go. When your mind finally stops its vigilance and agrees to trust the universe to hold you for a few hours. That surrender that happens every night, but we never quite remember. There's no word for when we not only assume we know what others are thinking, but build entire realities on those assumptions. When we judge them for thoughts we've assigned them, limit them to potentials we've imagined for them, create entire relationships with projections instead of people. We all do this constantly, but we can't name it, so we can't properly address it. What about that feeling of lightness in your whole body? Not weight loss, not the absence of pressure, but that specific sensation when every cell feels buoyant, when gravity seems negotiable, when you understand why humans have always dreamed of flying. We don't have words for different types of love. The love you know has an expiration date. The summer romance, the friendship that's tied to a place you're leaving, the connection that's perfect for now but not forever. And it's opposite. The love you know you're eventually meant for, that you're growing toward, that's waiting for you to become the person who can receive it. We lack words for people who are funny without being mean, which says something tragic about our culture that humor and cruelty have become so intertwined we notice when they're separated. For people who are deep without being negative, as if wisdom and sadness are supposed to be synonymous. What do we call that specific frustration when someone's upset about something that's completely false, that they've invented in their mind? When they're reacting to a reality that doesn't exist, and you can't make them see the actual reality because they're so committed to their fiction. That helpless feeling of watching someone fight ghosts. We have no word for those random, weird, scary, embarrassing thoughts that cross everyone's minds. The violent impulse towards someone you love. The sexual thought about someone inappropriate. The urge to jump from a high place. We all have them. We're all ashamed of them. We all think we're alone in them because there's no word to normalize them. What about the detective work we do trying to figure out someone's intentions? Piecing together texts, analyzing response times, interpreting emoji choices, creating entire narratives from breadcrumbs of evidence. We all become private investigators of human intention, but we have no word for this universal practice. There's no word for that stuck feeling when you know something isn't right, but you can't imagine what would be right. When you're aware of wrongness, but not yet aware of alternatives. That purgatory between knowing you need to leave and knowing where to go. We lack language for the comfort of small, safe conclusions, the relief of temporarily believing you've figured something out. And equally, we lack language for the peace that comes from releasing those illusions, from admitting you don't know, from dissolving false certainty back into honest mystery. What do we call the realization that finding your purpose was always an ego game? That purpose isn't something you find, but something you do daily, without fanfare? That the whole quest was just another way to avoid the simple work of living? We have no words for how we actually mark time in our lives. Not years or birthdays or graduations, but the real demarcations, before and after that conversation, when you lived in that apartment, when you were friends with those people, the era of that relationship, the season of that struggle. Our real calendars have no names. There's no word for the space between raindrops, that barely perceptible moment when you're not getting wet, for the pause between heartbeats, for the silence between words, for all the spaces that make the substances possible. We lack language for what we actually need to learn. Where's the course on doubt, the degree in friendship, the certification in self-image? We have words for academic subjects that take up 4 years, but no words for the life subjects that take up 40. What about being in love with someone you only used to know? Someone who exists now only in memory, who you still feel connected to, even though the person walking around with their name is a stranger. That specific grief of losing someone who's still alive. We have no word for happy tired after a big meal, for the sensation of looking back on something fondly that you didn't enjoy while it was happening, for feeling a feeling, that meta-emotion of being aware of your emotional experience while having it. We lack words for people and places that feel like home when they're not your house, for the belief that everything is as it should be, even when it seems all wrong, for the thousands of experiences that make up a life but can't be captured in language. These gaps in our language aren't just linguistic curiosities. They represent gaps in our ability to share experience, to feel less alone, to understand that what feels unique to us is actually universal. When we can't name something, we can't properly think about it, talk about it, process it, share it. So we live these unnamed experiences in isolation, thinking we're the only ones who feel this way, who notice this thing, who struggle with this unnamed challenge. We're surrounded by people having the exact same unnameable experiences, but we're all alone in them because words, those bridges between minds, don't exist for these moments. Maybe that's why we make art. Maybe that's why we need music and painting and dance and all the forms of expression that don't require words, because they can capture what language can't. They can share what can't be spoken. They can name the unnameable, even if the naming isn't in words. Until we develop language for these experiences, we'll keep pointing at them mutely, hoping someone else recognizes what we're trying to indicate. We'll keep saying, "You know that feeling when," and hoping someone does know. We'll keep living large portions of our lives in linguistic exile, rich with experience, but poor in the ability to share it. But maybe that's okay. Maybe some experiences are meant to exist beyond language. Maybe the fact that we all have unnameable experiences is itself a form of connection. Maybe the spaces between words, like the spaces between raindrops, are where the real magic lives. The experiences we don't have words for yet. They're not waiting to be named. They're complete as they are, perfect in their wordlessness, fully formed in their inability to be captured. They remind us that life is bigger than language, that experience exceeds expression, that being human involves mysteries that will never be solved by vocabulary. We don't have words for them yet. Maybe we never will, and maybe that's exactly as it should be.